Have you ever wondered how important electoral reforms are to the strength and integrity of a democracy? Let's delve into this topic and uncover the significance of this crucial aspect of our political sphere. Electoral reforms are essentially changes or improvements made to the electoral system, the bedrock of any democracy. They are designed to rectify any flaws or shortcomings in the existing system, making it more transparent, fair, and credible. The goal is simple yet profound: to ensure that every vote counts and that every voice is heard. It's easy to underestimate the importance of electoral reforms, but let's think about it. In a democratic society, the power lies with the people. They elect representatives who make decisions on their behalf. But what if the system that facilitates this process is flawed? It could result in misrepresented voices, unfulfilled promises, and ultimately, a weakened democracy. That's where electoral reforms come in. They act as a safeguard, ensuring that the democratic process is as fair and transparent as possible. They help eliminate loopholes that could be exploited, reduce the risk of electoral fraud, and enhance the credibility of the electoral process. When we talk about electoral reforms, we're talking about a wide range of measures. This could include changes to the voting system, redrawing constituency boundaries to ensure fair representation, or even implementing stricter regulations on campaign financing. Moreover, electoral reforms can also help foster greater participation in the democratic process. By making the system more accessible and understandable, they can encourage more people to cast their votes and have a say in the governance of their country. But perhaps the most significant aspect of electoral reforms is their role in maintaining the trust of the people in the democratic process. When the electorate believes that the system is fair and their vote truly counts, they are more likely to participate actively in shaping the future of their nation. So it's clear that electoral reforms play a crucial role in shaping the democratic processes and ensuring their integrity. They are the unseen heroes, tirelessly working behind the scenes to uphold the values of fairness, transparency, and credibility that are so integral to a robust democracy. To understand the impact of electoral reforms, we must first delve into their history. The concept of electoral reform, like democracy itself, is an ever-evolving one. It's a journey that has taken us from the ancient city-states of Greece to the modern-day democratic nations. The seeds of electoral reform were first sown in ancient Athens, where citizens could vote directly on legislation and executive bills. However, this system was far from perfect, as it excluded women, slaves, and foreigners from the process. As societies evolved, so did the need for more inclusive and representative electoral systems. The Magna Carta of 1215 in England, for instance, laid the groundwork for constitutional law and the principle that the king, like his subjects, was not above the law. This was a key step towards the establishment of parliamentary democracy. Fast forward to the 19th century, and we see a wave of electoral reforms sweeping across the globe. These reforms were driven by the struggles for universal suffrage, the right to vote for all adults irrespective of gender, race, or wealth. Countries like New Zealand and Australia led the way by granting women the right to vote in the late 19th century. In the 20th century, the fight for electoral justice took on a new dimension, focusing on the elimination of discriminatory practices. The Voting Rights Act of 1965 in the United States, for example, sought to overcome legal barriers that prevented African Americans from exercising their right to vote. In recent years, electoral reforms have focused on issues such as campaign finance, electoral integrity, and the use of technology in voting. The goal remains the same: to ensure that every vote counts and that the democratic process is as fair and transparent as possible. And that, in a nutshell, is the history of electoral reforms, a history marked by a constant evolution towards greater fairness and transparency. Now that we have a grasp on the history of electoral reforms, let's examine their impact on democratic processes. Electoral reforms have a transformative effect on democracies around the world. By reshaping the rules of the game, these changes can dramatically alter the political landscape. They can provide a level playing field for all political players, making democracies more inclusive and representative. For example, consider the introduction of universal suffrage. Before this reform, voting was a privilege often reserved for a small segment of society. But with the advent of universal suffrage, the right to vote was extended to all citizens, regardless of their social status, race, or gender. This not only broadened the democratic base but also made political representation more reflective of the society at large. Another impactful reform has been the implementation of proportional representation. Unlike winner-takes-all systems, proportional representation ensures that political parties gain seats in proportion to the number of votes they receive. This has resulted in a more diverse and inclusive representation in many legislatures, giving voice to minority groups and smaller political entities that might otherwise be sidelined. Electoral reforms also play a significant role in enhancing the credibility and transparency of democratic processes. Take, for instance, the adoption of secret ballots, which protects voters from undue influence and coercion, strengthening the integrity of the electoral process. In more recent times, we've seen the advent of technology-based reforms. Electronic voting machines and online voting systems, while still a topic of debate, have the potential to make voting more accessible and efficient. These technologies can also provide a higher degree of transparency, as digital trails can be audited and verified, ensuring the legitimacy of the results. However, it's essential to note that the impact of electoral reforms isn't always straightforward. The outcomes can vary depending on the specific context and implementation. For instance, while proportional representation can lead to a more diverse legislature, it can also result in political fragmentation and instability. Similarly, while electronic voting can make the process more efficient, it also raises concerns about security and privacy. That's why it's crucial to approach electoral reforms with a nuanced understanding, considering both their potential benefits and the possible risks. It's about finding the right balance to ensure that these reforms truly serve their purpose of strengthening democratic processes. In conclusion, electoral reforms are a powerful tool for shaping democracies. They can make political representation more inclusive and reflective of society, enhance the credibility and transparency of the electoral process, and potentially make voting more accessible and efficient. But like any tool, they need to be used wisely and judiciously. As we can see, electoral reforms have a profound impact on democratic processes, making them more inclusive, representative, and transparent. Despite the strides made, the journey towards perfecting our democratic processes is far from over. Democracy, in its true essence, is an evolving process. It is a journey, not a destination. And so is the case with electoral reforms. While we've made significant progress in refining our electoral systems, the need for ongoing reforms is ever present. Our current democracies face a myriad of challenges. One such challenge is the issue of political financing. The influence of money in politics often leads to unequal representation and skewed policymaking. Ongoing electoral reforms can address this by introducing stringent campaign finance regulations and fostering transparency in political donations. Another pressing concern is the lack of voter engagement. In several democracies, a significant portion of the population doesn't vote, either due to apathy or lack of accessibility. Reforms that make the voting process more convenient and inclusive can help increase voter turnout and ensure that the government truly represents the will of the people. Moreover, the emergence of new technologies brings both opportunities and threats. While digital platforms can enable broader engagement and easier access to information, they can also be exploited for misinformation, manipulation, and cyber attacks. Hence, ongoing electoral reforms must consider these digital realities and strive to harness technology's potential while mitigating its risks. Additionally, the issue of gerrymandering, where electoral boundaries are manipulated to favor a particular group, continues to plague many democracies. Electoral reforms aimed at ensuring fair representation and preventing such manipulations are of utmost importance. It's also crucial to note that each democracy has its unique set of challenges and contexts. Therefore, electoral reforms should be tailored to address these specific issues, and there is no one-size-fits-all solution. Thus, the quest for more robust and fair electoral processes continues, underlining the critical need for ongoing electoral reforms. As we move ahead, let's remember, our democratic systems can only be as strong as our commitment to continually improve them. And that commitment starts with recognizing and addressing the need for ongoing electoral reforms. Today, we've explored the vital role of electoral reforms in strengthening democratic processes. We've journeyed through the importance of these reforms, uncovering how they serve as the cornerstone of any thriving democracy. From there, we delved into the rich tapestry of their history, revealing how past reforms have shaped the democratic landscapes we know today. We then examined the profound impact of electoral reforms on democratic processes. We discovered that these reforms not only shape the rules of the game, but also determine the players and the nature of their play. And finally, we underscored the ongoing need for these reforms, a need that stems from the ever-evolving nature of societies and their political landscapes. In conclusion, electoral reforms are the backbone of any strong democracy, shaping its growth and evolution and ensuring its credibility and transparency. Thank you for joining us in this exploration of such a fundamental aspect of our democratic processes.